Hello, good evening and welcome to the build-up show. Hopefully it won't be as optimistic as I was for the Man City build-up, but we'll wait and see. Tonight's show is brought to you by Paddy Power. Bookie's a website and an app. If you gamble, please do so responsibly, and if you do, please choose to do so with Paddy Power. Tonight I'm joined by Gav on the other side of the hosting chair tonight. Gav, how are you?
Great. Running on minimal sleep for various reasons, but other than that, I'm great.
Good stuff, good stuff. We're all a bit tender, I'd say, today. Shawnee Lawson, Sean, how are you?
All good, mate. Yeah.
Tender as well, yeah.
Yeah, well done at this stage. Ready to eat. I'd say a stick of fork on me, I'm done, sort of thing.
Good stuff, good stuff. And Jim Fishlock, Jim's back again with us. Jim, how are you?
Yeah, good, thanks, mate. Yeah, very good. Thank you very much.
Great to have you again.
Back.
Good, excellent stuff. So we're going to look ahead to the Aston Villa game on the back of what was a disappointing result against Man City, but we'll look back at some of the reaction to that performance as well. Gav, I'll start with you. How did you find the reaction, Klopp's comments in the immediate aftermath and in the comments today in his press conference?
I didn't see his press conference, but we done a pod last night about it, and I was very flippant about it, I suppose. I just thought it was the team we all wanted to see. And for the first 20-25 minutes, I thought they were fine. But, 4-0 is 4-0. You can't get around that. But having said that, Liverpool were probably playing at 80% last night, 85% last night. And the percentages are so low, and the difference between the teams is so fine that if you're at 85 and they're at 86, that 1% is absolutely massive. And if you watch it, we had chances. If we'd have taken them, could have been a completely different game. But I think if you look at the way especially attacking wise, we were okay. We had chances. Defensively, I thought we looked not like a team that was on the piss for the week. Now, we did make a joke of that last night, but we looked like a side to me that weren't putting in that extra couple of percent in concentration in particular. And you get killed by Man City. You just do. You get killed by any big side if you don't put in that extra couple of percent. But I was a bit flippant over it. Klopp was extremely upset about it, and I just feel sorry for Aston Villa now, because if Klopp is mirroring that attitude that you seen on Sky last night and you seen in a press conference, I presume, today he was. I seen one clip where he was fairly defiant, isn't the word. I think he was a bit put out by what had gone on. If he's mirroring that in the dressing room, I think Aston Villa may be in for a long 90 minutes on Sunday.
Yeah, very true. Jim, what do you think of the reaction that we can expect, of the immediate reaction to the match? How do you think it's shaping up for Sunday?
I agree with Gav. I think the reaction is what you'd expect from the manager. Obviously, he's not going to come out and say, it's just one of those things. We probably were a little bit unprofessional, etc., leading up to the game, which I don't think we would have been. But the reality is, as a manager, you've got to take the highs and the lows, and obviously you've had everything that's come ever since we officially won the league, which is well deserved and pretty much the majority of his reign. And I'm sure, in hindsight, the last thing he would have wanted is to turn up last night and lose in the manner that we did. Like Gav says, and Sean said before we came on air, for the first 20 minutes we looked very good. It looked like it was going to be a classic game, and I think, and as I said earlier, the first goal is key. We get our first goal from Mane's chance, or one of the other chances that we had before they score first, and you're potentially looking at us winning that game 2-3, 4-0, because you don't know how Man City react to going down so quickly, so early on in the game. So I think Klopp's right to get into him. I think it's time now for everybody to realise all the talk of let's get these young lads a trophy, a winner's medal, let's give them the 5 games, etc. That's been put to bed. And it's quite clear that he wants to end this season on another undefeated run going into the start of next season. Because don't forget, we're not going to have the long summer break like we would normally have. It is literally going to be a couple of weeks, I think. Then they're straight into pre-season and then back into the Premier League. So there's no time to waste, really. I don't think we can afford to drop off. And as for Aston Villa, yeah, like Gav says, I feel for them. To be honest with you, I feel for any team that would play us this weekend after last night. I don't think it's going to be very pretty for them.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. And Shawnee, as the lads touched on there, and we were speaking before we came on air about the quality of these games between Liverpool and Man City, that it is something that's really brewing into a proper rivalry now. As much as the fans will give a bit of stick back and forth saying, oh, Man City are a rival, they certainly are becoming a big rival now, and the intensity of those games, it's shown in it, isn't it?
Yeah, 100%. Like, you see, Jim as well alluded to it before we came on air about that Arsenal and United rivalry. Not really rivals per location, but just in terms of both everyone having the same goal in mind. And there really has been a bit of needle in these last few City and Liverpool games, especially at Anfield. And then you could see it last night, and the likes of Fernando and all not clapping us on the pitch. Now, I kind of like that, because I think this is what's good. We spur each other on. Liverpool and Man City at the moment is similar to Messi and Ronaldo in La Liga. You score 3, I'll score 4 sort of thing. And I think we push each other, because if you look at last year, I don't think there's no way that we do 97 points and they do 98 points. If we're not as good as we are and they're not as good as they are. So, like last night, look, in the grand scheme of things, it really doesn't matter, but it is a kick in the teeth, and it's a little bit of one-upmanship for them. And you could see by Klopp was spiky because Klopp was annoyed. But it's fine margins in those games, and we didn't take our chances, and they did. And it was simple as that. And look, there has to be an element of the league title was 3 or 4 years in the making under Klopp, and a lot of these players have actually gone through a lot to get it over the line. So there had to be some sort of release and payoff in the end. And look, you could see it last night. Like Gav said, the extra bit of concentration, the switching off, it just wasn't there. And if you think this time next year, when that fixture comes around, that it's going to be the same, you're completely wrong, because these lads are ready to go again. Klopp said it as well himself in the press conference the other day. We're not going to defend this title next year. We're going to attack it. And it's as simple as that.
That's true. Yeah, it is. It's a great point. There's definitely the two teams are sporting each other on. The managers sport each other on. Without City doing what they do, we don't match that and have to push that and realise that draws are no good, and essentially even this season to make a title charge. So it is going to be a big point. But something that Jim touched on there was Klopp saying about blooding in the youngsters for the rest of the season. I know he said something today, didn't he, that the Premier League winners' medals won't be given out like Christmas presents. They'll have to earn their appearances and things like that. So I think we will see a strong team going forward for the rest of the season. The Guard of Honour thing, we won't talk too much about that. Sean, you touched on it there. What did you make of it, Gav? Did you think it was a bit half-arsed, or was it, you're not bothered either way?
Not arsed, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
I think no fans being in the stadium makes a massive difference to that, because if there's 45,000 City fans there and 5,000 Liverpool fans and they're being given a Guard of Honour, there's a lot more atmosphere to it. Yeah. I think the whole thing, I hate to say it, looked a bit fucking silly in an empty stadium. But that's the Guard of Honour, and that's the way the cookie is crumbled, I suppose. I've no problem with Bernardo Silva not clapping. We've talked for years about Liverpool sides not having enough snide in them and enough backbone in them and stuff like that. Bernardo Silva does exactly what you would want any Liverpool player to do. Now, I'm not calling for Liverpool, if you have to give a guard of honour at any time in the future, not clapping them on. But one player doing it and you're kind of going, yeah, you kind of like him for that. You know, we had a discussion the other night about Andy Robertson. It was a City fan on last night talking to us and said he hates him because he causes fights and stuff like that. And I was like, well, that's exactly why you like him, don't you? Yeah. Or why we like him. Look, the guard of honour is there. There are two teams that have massive respect for each other, two managers that have massive respect for each other, but it's a rivalry. And all things being equal, and despite what the media are trying to tell you over the last couple of days, because when Liverpool were going to win the league was terrible, and Liverpool have won the league now, and all of a sudden all these teams around them are great and have all these ingredients to go and challenge City and Liverpool, and they don't, unless they do big things in the transfer window. So, you know, it is like Shawnee says, it's a rivalry that's building, and Jim said the same. It's a rivalry that's building, and they push each other on, and it's basically a case of who blinks first or shown no weakness. I have no issue with what went on last night. I'd have no issue if one Liverpool player didn't do it. Although I did see a great thing today of Gabriel Jesus, a big smile on his face, clapping away while he was looking at Firmino coming out. So you know, you can pick on one thing and ignore another at times. But no, I've no issue with it whatsoever, and I don't think. I thought Liverpool looked a bit kind of what's going on when they were coming out to this. You know, they were kind of looking around and going, yeah, it doesn't really mean as much with no one in the ground. But look, at the end of the day, I don't give a fuck about people clapping us on pitches or doing anything. Liverpool are champions, and you know, nothing is going to take away from that.
That's the most important thing, isn't it? And even when you look at the way the match played out last night, you've all sort of touched on the fact that it was a tight game. You know, it was very close, and you know, we had chances. If we could have taken them chances, it would have been probably a different game, and they just took their chances. We were uncharacteristically bad at the back, you know, it has to be said. There was a few of them, like on Foden's goal, I think Robbo was a bit all over the place on that, but you know, it's happened after we've won the league, so essentially there's no harm done on it. But I don't think it's something that carries forward into next season. Before we move on, if you can all on YouTube, hit the like button, do all the sharing, the bell icon, all that good stuff. And Stevie's on my case again. I'm sure it's about not putting the comments up. We'll get into a few comments now, because a few people are mentioning in the comments about the links that are getting strongly put out now about Thiago Alcantara. Shawnee, I know you're a fan of his. What are you making of these links, and do you think it's something that's going to happen?
They're just links for the moment, to be honest. Like you said, I'm a massive fan of Thiago. I think he's a wonderful midfielder. He's arguably one of the best creative midfielders of his generation, and obviously he's looking for a new challenge at Dortmund. I think their president came out tonight and said that it looks like he does want to leave. Now, from what we read, it says that Thiago wants to play for Liverpool. I'm sure a lot of footballers want to play for Liverpool. It doesn't mean that they're going to get the move. The reason why I immediately dismiss it is because there's noise on it. And for the last couple of years, whenever Liverpool have done business, we don't know anything about it until it's done. So it's hard to know. I expect in the next couple of days that the likes of James Pearce and Melissa Reddy might pour cold water over it, and that'll be it. We'll move on. All the noise from the club at the moment is that they're not going to do anything major. I love Thiago. I think he gives us a complete different dimension. I think if we're going to be hypercritical of this Liverpool team, one thing we've seen this season is that we rely an awful lot on our wide men for the creativity throughout the side. And if you have a midfielder like Thiago in there who can turn a man on a sixpence and put the ball on the balls of a spider, then it just completely changes the rhetoric of the team. And I think next year, Klopp is going to have to find a new way to make us creative. And if you're going to bring someone in like Thiago, Jesus, there's no better player you can bring in at the moment. Now, it doesn't excite me because it's just a rumour, but I'd absolutely love it to happen.
Something you said there, Shawnee, was the Rummenigge quotes that came out, and I just read them there before we came on, and I think that's adding a bit more. I was sort of looking at a bit half-arsed until I read the Rummenigge quotes, because my take on this was that he's just looking for a bumper new contract. But all the talk now from Bayern Munich is that no, he wants out. And Rummenigge even mentioned Liverpool, just saying that they had no contact from anyone. But he thinks that might change. Jim, what's your take on this transfer tittle-tattle? Are you into all this carry on, or is enough for you?
I think he's a brilliant footballer. I think he'd be very, very good. He's, like Shawnee says, in terms of technical ability and creativity, he's one of the best. Is it somebody that we would probably look at? Does he fit the profile of the type of signing that we would make? I think probably not, even if we weren't in the world that we're in now. Even if there was a pot full of money for sitting there, would he be somebody that we'd sort of bring in, say 35, 40, 45 million? Was he probably on about 140, 150 grand a week?
Yeah.
Probably not, given his age and his injury record. I think if I was playing on FIFA or Football Manager, I'd be bringing him in. But if I'm Jurgen Klopp right now, looking at the midfield options I've got and probably the list of players that Michael Edwards possibly has got for us to bring in that midfield area, if we're going to bring anyone in, which I don't think we will, I don't think it's going to happen at all. But that's not to take away from what he is, which is an absolutely fantastic footballer.
Gav, what do you make of these links? Do you think the age is the key thing here, or do you think it's something that if it can be done for, I've seen 35 million getting mentioned, do you think that might change their outlook? Let's say if a Genie was to move on and they got in Thiago for a couple of years, even without having to look for a resale as such on it, do you think it's one they'd look at under those circumstances, or are you of the opinion that the age just doesn't match what Liverpool tend to do?
I think the age thing, there's too much made of the age thing. Kevin De Bruyne is 29. If Kevin De Bruyne is lamping around for 35 million, you're not going to bring up his age, are you? These are elite footballers. It's 29 is nothing to these people. I'm sure Jordan Henderson must be close to 29, 30 as well.
40,
yeah, we're writing him off. We're not writing off Gini Wijnaldum. Milner's flying around at 34. And the style of player he is, I think he's brilliant from what I've seen of him. And I'm not going to pretend I've seen him 100 times because I haven't, because I don't watch the Bundesliga. But what I've watched of him, the only thing I'm a bit curious about is where does he play? And I don't mean in Liverpool side, because I'm not into picking 11s and who does he replace. It's a squad game, and I'm all for the more quality players you can get, the better.
I'll just say something, Gav.
You went on us there, Shawnee.
One thing that's massively overlooked in Thiago's game, how actually good effective he is at winning. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
The one thing that's massively overlooked in Thiago's game is his ability to win the ball back and snap into tackles. Like, he's a physical little fucker. As we've seen, because he's dominated English teams in the Champions League every single time he's come up against them. So people saying he's a bit slight and this and that, I don't buy that either. He is a tenacious little fucker.
He's not going to be slight because he's come from Barcelona under Pep Guardiola. As soon as Guardiola took over at Bayern Munich, I think he was the first player that he bought there. So in terms of the pressing game, winning possession back, being tenacious,
he's not going to lack there, is he?
He's not going to lack that at all.
No.
Personally, it's his injury record. It's his injury record and the attritional style that Klopp plays. It's a different intensity to the way Guardiola's teams will press and win the ball back. It's far more attritional, the way we play. So that would be my main concern because of his age and his history, his injury record, if you know what I mean. Not taking his age in isolation, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely does make sense because for the impression I got of him was he played deeper than, he looks to play deeper and probably in a 2. That's just the bang. That's the impression I get off him. That I could be wrong. Bayern could play a 3 and he could be the number 8 in it. I don't know. But from what I've seen of him, he's extremely good player. He's very, very technically good. Scores the odd goal here and there, doesn't he? And so neat and tidy on the ball, doesn't give it away. And like the lads say, he's come from Barcelona, he's come from Bayern Munich that love to press and love to win the ball back, so it's not alien to him. But I don't worry about money. 30, if it's 30 or 40 million, it's not my money. If Liverpool can do the deal, a few people in the chat have said there, look, if it can be a staggered payment over a certain amount of years, it's a no-brainer. I'd agree. I'll put it to you this way: Adam Lallana is leaving the club in the summer. Now, there's been a lot of talk around Curtis Jones taking his place. I'm not on board with that. Nothing against Curtis Jones, but I'm not on board. I don't think he's at the level you need to play at the elite level that we play at the majority of the time. But if you're asking me, would you change Adam Lallana for Thiago Alcantara? Yes is the answer. And if it costs you 30 million quid, fine. And I'm all for it. Like I don't see the issue if he's quality, and no one's denying that quality. If the finances are in place to do it, whether it's straight up there's 30 million or a staggered payment, and the club can make it happen. Yeah, absolutely make it happen. It's interesting. The Rummenigge comments. He to me he looks like he's looking for an auction now. He knows that player is leaving and he doesn't want it. He doesn't want him to drag out another even 6 months of his contract and try leave around January and they get next to nothing for him. The media stuff, I've lost all hope in journalists, to be perfectly honest with you. They tell you they know stuff and then they don't. And then when they don't say anything, and then it comes out, i.e. Timo Werner, and all of a sudden the next day they know they have the script of everything that supposedly Jurgen Klopp says to Timo Werner. So when it comes to journalists, I haven't got a lot of belief in them at the moment when it comes to Liverpool and transfer rumours.
That is true, yeah. It's something that we've learned to, I suppose, take with a pinch of salt, isn't it? I see the Echo are poo-pooing it, but, again, the likes of Fabinho came out of nowhere when we got Fabinho. Literally nobody seen that one coming, and within 2 hours he was signed. So, look, we don't know what's going to happen there. I think, personally, Thiago's a wonderful player. I went to watch Barcelona a few years ago, and naturally I was just glued to Messi, but Thiago was doing all the warm-ups with Messi, and the skills that he was doing. Now, Joe Cole could do skills in a warm-up, but the stuff that he was doing, man, he was only a youngster at the time, and I was absolutely mesmerising looking at him. So I followed him an awful lot since then, and I think he'd be perfect in our team, to be honest, because Seany's right. You come through La Masia and then you go and play in Bayern Munich. Well, Bayern aren't getting tested every week. It's in him to be pressing and to be, when Guardiola sort of force went into Barcelona, it's all about winning the ball back after so many seconds if you lose it, so he was brought up in that, and pressing won't be an issue. The injury thing, but the same thing could be said about Kevin De Bruyne. If we use him for an example, he's got a terrible injury record. Would you take him? You know what I mean? So it's one of them things. Alex Oxlade-Chamberlain had a terrible injury record. Hasn't been great since he's come to us, but the players will always, in this day and age, I think, are a bit more injury prone, the way it's going. But look, we'll see what happens. As I said, I wasn't reading too much into this Thiago news until I seen Rummenigge's comments, and that sort of it changed me stance on it a bit. That he definitely does want to leave, and it's not just contract stuff. But I agree with what Gav has just said there. He did say, Rummenigge, that he's not going to let it go to the last. He's not going to be going for free. So maybe he is just trying to drum up a bit of an auction and a bit of interest. But the reports are saying that he has his heart set on us. But as Shawnee said, I'm sure loads of them have their heart set on us.
I think if it does end up happening, that will be a big thing to do with it. Because if you look at all the players that we've kind of got in the last year, the big ones, they nailed to the mast that they were only going to play for Liverpool. So like the likes of Van Dijk and everyone else. It looked like Werner was saying that he was only going to play for Liverpool, but obviously whatever happened with the COVID, I think the only way Thiago comes is he literally turns around and says, I'm actually not playing for anybody else by Liverpool, so work it out with them and figure out what you're going to take for us and what they're going to pay. That's the only way I see it happening.
Yeah, that's true. You know, and that's might be what if things like that are happening, then we'll pay a bit more attention to it. But we'll see. Like I said, I don't think we're overly hopeful of this one happening. But look, stranger things have happened, I suppose. And we'll wait and see what happens. So listen, we're just gonna have a little interlude here. Bear with me. We're just gonna move on to our player. So, as you have noticed over the last few shows, we're doing a little preview or review of the players that are currently standouts in our team at the moment. And tonight we're going to talk about Andy Robertson. I love Andy Robertson. I'm not going to lie. I absolutely think he's brilliant. He's a great player. He's a great character. And as Gav touched on earlier, he brings a certain amount of snide into us that we haven't always had, and we do need, you know. So Gav, I'll let you start on Robbo. What do you make of him?
He's been brilliant. You know, when we're doing these kind of player reviews, I'm trying not to go back to when people signed and you know, their first or second or third season. I'm trying to look at just this season, and I think he's been excellent. He's a fulcrum of the side. You know, we constantly talk, like we've just been talking about Thiago Alcantara, and you know, people try talk themselves out of a bit because they see our midfield as very functional, and it is. And sometimes you'll throw stuff out like, oh, we might need a bit more creativity, and he might be the man. But our creativity most of the time comes from the front three and our fullbacks. And Trent gets an awful lot of plaudits, which are well deserved. You know, the goals he has and the assists he has over the last two and a half seasons is off the charts. But Robertson is a different type of fullback. You know, he's much more tenacious. He's a bit more all action, I think. He wants to get to the byline. He wants to jump into challenges. He wants to he wants to do everything. He literally wants to do it a lot. I think if you ask him to play, he's the sort of player that if you ask him to go into midfield and have a go, he'd definitely have a go. I love his attitude. I love that he's giving Messi a slap across the head. I've no problem with that. Just all out this season, I think he's been absolutely excellent. He may have had a slight dip in form here or there, but a slight dip in form is probably 7.5, 8 out of 10. Most weeks he's coming out and he's absolutely flying. He does get affected by Mane when he's missing. I think we do big time. And Mane gets affected by him not being there, especially when Milner plays left back. But for me, Andy Robertson is just, he's out on his own, the left backs in this league, and across the world he's definitely in the top 2 or 3.
Shawnee, what do you think?
Robbo's amazing. Like Gav said, fulcrum of the team, one of the most important cogs in the machine. And considering the workload he actually has to do, because he's our only natural left-sided left back, the workload he goes through and the type of work that he puts in the middle of a game is incredible. Like Mourinho touched on last season when we played United, that he said he just doesn't stop. He's relentless. And not only is a brilliant one-on-one defender, now last night permitted, his delivery and his in-game intelligence is unbelievable, and he's the dirtiest little bastard in our side. And if he was playing for anybody else, he'd hate him, but we love him because he's ours. And he's been absolutely excellent. He deserves all the plaudits he gets, and he'll be the most dominant left back in the Premier League for the next 3 or 4 years at least, I reckon.
Yeah, it's great. Jim, what's your take on Robbo?
Yeah, much the same as the other two lads, to be honest with you. He's world class. He's pretty much, him and Trent have pretty much redefined the full-back position, I think. Every couple of years, football evolves, doesn't it, in some format, whether it be the false nine, the Makelele type role, the ball-playing centre-back, etc. But now, all of a sudden, I think all the top teams are looking at where do you get your width, where do you get your advantage, your overloads, and invariably now, the top teams, the attacking teams, are looking to use their full-backs, whether that be in sort of like a wing-back type formation, or like we do basically. A lot of the time when we're in possession, we probably end up with 3 behind the ball and the rest in front. And the two full-backs are massive towards that. And Robbo, I think, in terms of, like Trent obviously is a fantastic crosser of the ball. He puts in a great set piece, dead ball, and he's great with the free kicks. Considering Robbo, majority of his assists and the influence he has on the game is in play as opposed to dead ball, like Trent. I think arguably he's probably a little bit more important to us because we haven't got anybody else who can play in that position and offer the things that he can do. We've got one or two other options of people who could play right back and offer similar attributes to what Trent does, aside from his dead balls and set pieces. Whereas when Robbo doesn't play, you only got to look at the Everton game to see how difficult it was for us to create that width and stretch the game and get Mane and the other front players into it. So he's massive. And I know lots of guys in the chat are saying, look, we need a backup left back, we need probably another centre back and a forward before we look at the midfield, and I'd agree with that. But where you find somebody who can do what Robbo does, it's going to be quite difficult, to be honest with you. So I think it's probably going to be another one of those maybe lower transfer fees, somebody who doesn't get much football but is worked on the training ground, much like Robbo was when he first came to us, to try and get him to be able to do anything like the sort of output and the influence on the game that Robbo has.
Yeah, I think it'd be something along the lines of, I know people are throwing in the comments there the likes of Jamal Lewis, Ruben Vinagre and all that. I wouldn't be surprised if it was a Ryan Fraser or something, a winger that they bring in and just nearly coach him to be a wing back in the Liverpool team. Because the attacking... The thing about our fullbacks, I suppose, is the attacking onus on them is so big. You can't just get a good left back and expect them to do what Robbo does. They have to be attacking as well. They have to be, the delivery has to be spot on. And I know Gav mentioned there about just wanting to talk about them during this season, but I just threw a few stats down, and the comparison with Robbo and Trent, it's actually quite interesting when you look. So Trent has 127 career appearances, 7 goals and 34 assists. Robbo for us has 121 games, 3 goals and 26 assists. The amount of assists these two are getting in roughly the same amount of games, it's absolutely, it's crazy. 34 for Trent and 26 for Robbo. They're for me at 2 fullbacks. It's unbelievable. And to get him in, to get the player in for that, Andy Robertson is the type of money ball signing that FSG will sort of hang the hats on now, and they'll be like, look, this is the type of player we want to sign. This is the £8 million player, which was essentially a swap deal for Kevin Stewart. This is the type of deal that we want to do, and when they work like that, you can't really blame them. But Robertson, yeah, go ahead.
Does anybody else think he goes under the radar a bit? And that might sound like a mad, ridiculous thing to say, because
yeah, I do. I was thinking just now that you could argue that he's been the best signing that we've made in recent years. I know,
pound for pound.
That's a bit of a stretch when you look at Alisson, Van Dijk, and a few of the other guys.
But even
what doesn't help? And what doesn't help him is that Trent's a scouser. If Andy Robertson was a scouser from the academy, it's not a slight on Liverpool fans. It's just a thing. But you look at him now, he's a Celtic lad through and through. He loves Celtic to death, and you can see it in him. He's scouting away. He's Scottish. He's scouting away that he's Scottish. Similar to Dalglish when he came out and said, "Look, I'm not going to play anywhere else for the rest of my career." If Andy Robertson was an academy graduate from West Derby, similar to Trent, he'd be well up there. But I think he doesn't get the plaudits because Trent does genuinely look like he will be a generational talent.
Yeah,
and he absolutely does.
Yeah, and that's the only thing that I think it is. I think Sky will always cut to Trent because it's more fashionable. But Andy Robertson, like Jim said, is more, if not more important to Trent the team, because he's literally all that we have.
I think you're absolutely 100% spot on. Not only that as well, to add to that, I think Trent's assists are way more spectacular than Robertson's are. If you look at the assist this season for Salah at home to City, Trent hits a outrageous ball across pitch. Robertson, does he even take a touch? He might take a touch and then he puts one right into the path of Salah, and that's outstanding. But Trent's ball probably got a little bit more attention than Robertson's
Yeah.
cross. Robertson has put so many balls across the front of goal for the likes of Salah, Firmino, Mane, midfielders coming in to slot away, whereas Trent is whipping stuff in. I seen a goal the other day where he whipped one from the end line against West Ham just before COVID kicked in, and Wijnaldum gets on the end of it. Fabianski's not great, but Trent has, like Jer Carl says, and he's spot on. He says Trent's swagger, though Robbo way more humble. I think there's a swagger to Trent's game that's not in Robertson's. But even outside of Liverpool, like, we rave about him, but I've seen so many people that support other clubs going, oh, he's not that good, and he's caught this, and I'm kind of going, I think genuinely if Robertson swung a couple of big crosses into back posts or whipped crosses in and people got ahead of them, or he scored probably 2 or 3 more goals in a season, I think people knocking him, why they are I don't know, but people knocking him I think might disappear very, very quickly. For me, he goes under the radar a little bit, which is great. Long may it continue.
Long may it last,
I think Trent's got that corner against Barcelona as well, hasn't he?
Exactly.
Trent's got that. He's got the highlight reel Trent, and Robbo, I suppose you could probably refer to him as what I guess maybe Man United fans thought of a Dennis Irwin, in their heyday.
Yes.
Is that if you asked the Man United fan back then, they would say, like Roy Keane does on a regular basis, Dennis Irwin's like one of the best football players he's ever played with ever, full stop. Everybody else would think Dennis Irwin, no way. But, the things he could do, he was a fantastic footballer. And I think probably Robbo, much the same for us, watching the team week in, week out, and we're lucky, the team's got 12, 13, 14 great players. You could, make a case for all of them. But him in particular, because he is very, very much the one of that kind that we've got, he does stand out a bit more for us.
Yeah, he does.
But look, here you only have to look at what Arsenal paid 35 million for Scotland's second choice left back. And
he's very good, and that again shows how good Robbo is.
And he's a good player, but he wouldn't lace Robertson's boots on a bad day.
No, I agree with
That's true, it's very true. He is a good player.
He wouldn't be fit enough to lace his boots anyway.
Yeah, and there's that as well.
And I think as well, the thing with the Trent and Robbo comparison as well, you've got Trent being compared with Kevin De Bruyne, and every match that's on, you've got the Sky pundits and commentary team are comparing him with Kevin De Bruyne. They have him on, not on a pedestal, but it's Kevin De Bruyne, it's Steven Gerrard, it's David Beckham. They're the players that Trent gets compared with. And I suppose he was a midfield player who was sort of put in at right back just to develop and get into the team, whereas Robbo is just like a tenacious left back, isn't he? Just a terrier. He's up and down, but he's always looking for them little 1-2s in around the box, get to the byline, as you said, and just cutting them across. They're not as spectacular, obviously, on the highlight reel, but they're absolutely devastating when it comes off. And the amount, like I said, the amount of goals and chances he creates, he is very underrated. And like I said, I'm a huge fan of Robbo. Someone pointed out earlier, he wasn't great last night, but look, that's one game. We've won the league. He was great last week celebrating the league title win. Do you know what I mean? Like, he went hell for leather at that. So I just think he's an absolute smashing player. And we're lucky to have him. And the longer he stays underrated, the better. I love that argument when someone says, he's not that good. Like, he's not that good. Andy Robbo, lovely. Sit down and we'll have a chat. Welcome into this spider web. You're going to be here for a while. But look, Andy Robbo, he's a sensational player. His penetration on the left-hand side, it's unmatched, I think. And I agree. I think we need something to maybe take the slack off him. But, it'd be hard to get someone else that can do what he does. So, look, we'll move on from Robbo and we'll have a look ahead at Aston Villa on Sunday. People were putting in the comments earlier. And I've seen online as well, they're expecting Villa to get a bit of a hiding now on Sunday. Jim, what do you expect the reaction to be? Will there be a bit of a punishment out for Villa?
Yeah, I think so. I think they were probably going to struggle before last night. First home game, obviously we got no fans, etc. But since obviously we were crowned champions, I fully expect, Aston Villa can't defend as a team, full stop. They've got a terrible goalkeeper. wouldn't probably expect Werner to come back in on Sunday, but even if he does, I don't see anything other than possibly another 4, maybe 5-0. To be perfectly honest with you, I just think we're far, far too good for him.
Shawnee, what do you think? What do you expect on Sunday? Do you think it's going to be a reaction? Is it going to be Klopp sort of running the bollocks out of them for a few days and just getting them tip top for the Villa game and make not an example of Villa, but sort of get out there and sort of earn you a win and don't take his foot off?
Yeah, absolutely. I think there has to be a response, really. If they're saying to go out with the same sort of, I'm not going to say, I don't think the attitude was poor last night, but with the same kind of mentality going into the game, then they're no use to anybody. But I think Villa would have wished last night didn't go the way it went, because they've struggled really since the coming out of lockdown. They're a side that heavily relies on Grealish, and other than that, they have nothing else for us, I don't think. And as Jim said, they can't defend for toffee. So if we're clinical and we get an early goal, Jesus, God knows what score it's going to be. And you have the likes of Salah and Mane who are mad for that golden boot. So it could be ugly from their perspective on Sunday.
Gav, what do you think? Do you think it's not looking too tasty for Villa, or can you see a sting in the tail at all?
No, I don't see a sting in the tail, I'm being honest with you. I was amazed you see, I was amazed at Villa from early doors, and I mean before a ball was kicked. They come up into the Premier League off the back of nearly being out of existence. I think probably within 12 months previous. They were in serious financial issues, and they went and spent 155 million. One thing that's proven in the Premier League is if you come up, right, you might come up and you might be limited on what you can do, but you have a team that knows each other, they're cohesive, they work hard for each other, they have a plan, they stick to it, and you know, sometimes it gets them where they want to go. Norwich being the example that doesn't work this season in particular because they were just too naive. But Villa seem to... do you ever see a side that are struggling and they mishmash a team together before the season starts? Villa done it in a very expensive way, in my opinion. They don't seem to be able to defend. I think their centre halves are appalling. Their goalkeeper, they lost their goalkeeper, didn't they, from Burnley?
Tom Heaton,
yeah, they lost him. They brought in Rain. They've another guy in goal now. That's
Wijnaldum.
Yeah, he's not great. I think they compete in midfield. They have got Grealish, but they've no goals in them. And you can defend as much as you want, but that mix of Torres at the back and you know, can't hear the barn door up front is a deadly mix. And when you get into a rut like that, it's very, very hard to get out of it. And a 3-month break doesn't do anything for you. You know, they're treading water. They're not even treading water now. They're hoping for a lifebuoy to be thrown into the water at this stage. Listen, the only thing I would say is Klopp said he was going, and I've said this a couple of times on a couple of shows. Klopp said that Liverpool were going to come back all guns blazing to this league, and it didn't happen at Everton. They went out and they showed what they're about against Palace, and there was circumstances around City last night, i.e. loads of drink taken over the last 7 days, but that's not the whole excuse. I would have given Villa some sort of chance if Klopp had come out last night and went, listen, that's what happens, you know, the lads are being great, but he didn't. He's come out and he's told them that is not fucking good enough. And when you have a mix of Liverpool Football Club champions for the first time in 30 years, and 7 days after you've been crowned champions, Klopp is fucking, you know, there's paint coming off the wall because he's that annoyed. It's not good for Villa. Palace came to Anfield last week and didn't acquit themselves too badly, and they're a much better side than Villa, in my opinion, and they were torn apart. And I can see a very similar thing happening come Sunday, unless an absolute miracle happens for Villa. That's being perfectly honest with you.
Yeah, I think it's a tough one for them all. You touched on it there. If you're weak at the back, and it probably will be Nyland that plays in goal, and he's a calamity. And then you've got a back four that could possibly be made up of Tyrone Mings, Courtney House, Ezri Konsa, Neil Taylor. And Neil Taylor from your neck of the woods there, Jim. He's only coming in from the cold, you know what I mean? He's not been, you know, playing...
I think I do feel for Villa because, like last season, they were. I think I watched a lot of the Championship towards the end, and I think at one point they were like 10th or something. Dean Smith came in. He's a good manager. I think he'll probably, if they get relegated, hopefully they stick with him. But I think they had Abraham up front. John McGinn had just signed, and he started tearing up the Championship. They had Twanzebe, I think his name is, a centre-back from Man United at the back.
That's right, yeah.
They had a good goalkeeper, and they went on a brilliant run, and then obviously got promoted. Well, of course, as soon as they get promoted, I think they lost their goalkeeper, so to bring in Heaton. They lost Twanzebe. McGinn got injured at the start of the season, but the biggest problem was they lost Abraham. And, as everybody knows, it's very difficult to find a goal scorer who can get you 10, 15 goals in the Premier League. Never mind sort of 20. There's not a lot of them around anywhere. They've spent big money to try and replace the players that they've lost. And as with everything, a lot of it is down to who you sign and how much you spend on them. And if you get it wrong, this is the trouble. So they've got nobody up front. They've got a back four, which you've just read out, which is not good enough. McGinn hasn't come back from his injuries anywhere near the player he did before he was injured. And like I've said, you can't score and you can't keep a clean sheet, then unfortunately you're not going to get many points.
Yeah, I think their midfield, you're looking at Douglas Luiz, probably marvellous. What's his name? Marvellous Nakamba, and
John McGinn.
That'll be the three. And it's an industrious, it's a hard working midfield, and that's their only. I know they'll have Grealish will be their spark then, sort of coming off maybe the left hand side, but like they're gonna play Keenan Davis. I think his name Keenan Davis. Keenan
They
Davis.
were outside for years.
They were.
Them at Anfield for love and money.
But they'd be going in with a Benteke or the likes, and they'd have that big target man. And unfortunately,
we'd always have Skirtle. So
there's
always that's what was going on.
But even for them now, they just don't have that now. I watched what game did I watch with them? They played someone, and your man Keenan Davis up front was playing. I don't know who it was against, and he looked lively. He was mixing it up. He was throwing himself in. That could have been Sheffield United, and he just didn't look like he had a goal in him. You know what I mean? So it's one of them that they put a lot of money into Wesley to get them those goals, and got injured, bad injury. Takes a while to settle in. It was a big gamble. But the thing with Villa, they spent was the second most in transfers in the summer. But
it was 155 million quid.
Yeah. But over half of that, I think, was permanent, loan deals that they had making them permanent. And the likes of Al Ghazi and all they had in.
30 odd, wasn't he?
Who?
Like 35 million.
Yeah, there's a lot of the deals where they were throwing money at players to make them permanent. And they just don't look to me like they have a squad that they've spent 150 million on, and it's what do they do? They've really spent it poorly, and I think they. I
think they tried to run before they could walk. I think they've seen some potential in these players, and some of these players that they have may go on to have, if they go down Premier League careers, as you go, they're a decent player. But putting them all together at the same time was a bad move, a really bad move. And they probably looked at it as an opportunity when they looked at the likes of West Ham, and they looked at Bournemouth, and they looked at Sheffield United going, they looked at Norwich, and they went, listen, there's 4 teams. Throw in another couple. Newcastle looked like they were doomed, just because of who was in charge of them. Now they've had a really good season, but they probably looked at them and went, we can take this gamble, and we feel that these players are worth this money and will be worth more in the future. So take the gamble, get in there. There's definitely 4 or 5 sides that we can stay above, and then it gives us a real platform and basically jump from year 1 to year 3 in 1 year. That kind of way, instead of trying to progress it and say stay up, consolidate, and then push on a little bit like Bournemouth done, over the years. But Villa tried to jump too many hurdles, I feel, at the same time. And if you look at the amount of players they brought in, how many were Premier League players? Know the Premier League, and know the Premier League, know what it's about, know what you need to do week in, week out. Like you were saying, that's an industrious midfield. That's if it's playing in midfield. Yeah. How industrious can you be standing on the edge of your box trying to protect the back 4 that don't know what they're doing? So for me, it's wrong at Villa. I don't know who's mostly to blame. Is it the manager? Did he push these things? Is it the board? Is this new board inexperienced or what they're doing and thought this is a good plan? But
by all accounts, they've got
come on, yeah.
They've got like a sporting director sort of guy there. So I think he's the person that's bought all these players, rather than the manager. But you're 100% right, Gav. Is that the players they bought have got very limited Premier League experience, and you look at the coaching staff as a whole. None of them have coached in the Premier League, so they've gone and just filled the club really with a lack of experience and a lack of know-how as to how to manage to stay up in our league. And if you're gonna lose 3 or 4 players straight away, which need replacing from loans, why would you then buy another 2 or 3 on top of that to go into your first team? Because all of a sudden, from one season to the next, you've got 7 new first team players, which you can't build a team like that, unfortunately. Not be successful anyway.
Yeah, like Owen Burke says there, those Villa players only came 5th in the Championship last season, won the playoffs, and they didn't. I just find that the way they've gone around this is all wrong. And Villa are a huge club, you know, and I liked them in the Premier League, but they were a disgrace the last time they were in it, and they're not much better this time. They haven't learned. They'll
really haven't.
Be kicking themselves because Bournemouth, Watford, West Ham, really, and Norwich should all be the 4 teams at the bottom, scrapping for that one place to stay up. They're all 4 of those teams are appalling. So whoever goes down, bar anyone out of those 4 teams, will be kicking themselves because they should be 17th and down because they're 4 terrible, terrible teams.
It's true. It's there's so many bad teams, but as Kev O'Sullivan pointed out in the chat earlier, like, did they learn nothing from Fulham? Fulham the season before spent over 100 million on players and were absolutely deplorable and went down. So it's a harsh lesson. And for teams that come up, I don't know what way the Championship will play out, but for example, let's say a Leeds come up and they haven't been in the Premier League for so long. Do they get a bit desperate and try to? I know they don't have the finances and all that, but do they make? You have to be sensible with your signings, I think, rather than just throwing scattergun like Fulham did and like Villa did this season. Whereas West Brom, you think if they come up, they'll probably be a bit more sensible. They've been up and down a bit of a yo-yo over the years, but it's a harsh lesson for the promoted teams like that. 5th in the Championship, and they just made all those loan deals permanent. There was Douglas Luiz, Al Ghazi. They weren't spending it on top quality players, and then the players they brought in, I just can't see anything other than a bit of a baiting for them on Sunday. Everything is leaning that way. Now, my predictions have been outrageous since we've come back. I have us hopping off everyone. But I genuinely think this weekend we will. I think, as you both said, the way Klopp has spoken and the way we've seen previous reactions to bad results and bad performances, it doesn't matter who they play next, there's usually a performance out of them. So I think Villa might be on the end of a hiding. So what way do you think we're going to line up on Sunday? Is it going to be the same again, or do you think there might be 1 or 2 little changes in there? Gav?
I think that result last night has ended any chance of Jones, Elliott, Nico Williams getting what would you call semi-regular starts in the last six league games, isn't there? I thought the other night, from watching last night, Klopp has no interest in this 101 points. But his reaction afterwards tells me a little bit different. There may be 1 or 2 changes. I think your goalkeeper will be fine. I think your back 4 remain the same. Klopp did say that Gomez was taken off because of the yellow card and the way things were going. So maybe he stays with that. I know Matip's out for the season, and I know he also said that Lovren is out, and he didn't want to risk Gomez. I think you'll see Fabinho again, most certainly. I think you'll see Henderson. You might see Oxlade-Chamberlain though, or Keita, in my opinion. And I think the 3 lads will start up front. I genuinely do. I think the 3 lads will start up front. As you said, Salah's looked 2 off the golden boot. Mane might be 2 or 3 off as well, is he? Firmino needs a goal at Anfield, whether there's anybody there or there's 55,000 people there. He needs a goal at Anfield. I just think in midfield, I think you might see Wijnaldum drop out, and I think you'll see either Chamberlain or Keita come in. I think that'll be it.
Yeah. What about you, Jim?
probably wouldn't be surprised to see Nico Williams start at fullback. I think he might. The other, I think the centre halves pick themselves, don't they? There's nobody else really. Robertson will play left back. I would probably go Henderson. No, I'll probably go Fabinho, Henderson, and Keita. I don't think he trusts Keita and Oxlade-Chamberlain together as a two yet. And then I'd like to see Minamino start instead of Firmino, because I think Bobby's been enjoying a little break a bit too much, and certainly enjoying us winning the league. And then the other two lads obviously pick themselves. So I'd probably like to see that starting 11.
So you have
the
a
five
couple of
subs
changes,
is huge. I think the 5 subs thing is huge.
Yeah.
You know, if it's 3 subs, you're kind of going, we get. No, he could start Nico Williams. He could start Curtis Jones. He could start Heavy. We don't know what he's going to do. But the only thing I would say is, if he's at the calling out his team after that game last night, he has to give them the opportunity to put it right. That's the only way I think of it. There's no point in calling out these 11, 12, 13, 14 players or whatever it is and then going, oh, by the way, you're not playing now, because you're not giving them the chance to respond. And the response is what you want. You know, now there is times, don't get me wrong, where the team is just appalling and it's the last straw and you just go, him and him can't play again. And I'm going to lash them over and they're just not playing. I can't abide by them anymore. I can't watch them play football anymore. But I think you need to give the team a chance to respond, and I think the 5 subs thing may work in his favour. The likes of he may in his head just go, right, I'll play. He might go Keita or Chamberlain, but he look and go Williams, Jones, Elliott, Minamino, and another. And he'll go, that's me 5 that I'm going to change. And as somebody in the chat said there, for a few goals up, the young lads may come on at 60. Mick said it. I think that might be the way to go, because I've no problem with a manager calling players out. You know, they get enough, they're pussyfooted around enough in top level football, in my opinion, and they need to be able to take it on the chin when they're told they're not good enough. They're given enough plaudits, and look, it didn't affect me massively last night, because the bigger picture for me is just, you know, the league championship. But you know, if you're going to lash a team like that, you need to say to them, right, I've called you out, now you better go and prove yourself. And listen, he 5 of them could be walking off the pitch on 60 minutes going, well, there you go. You know, you got your response, and put the lads on and give them another appearance for the chance of that medal that he's already said they have to work hard for.
I think there's also the thing of, you know, looking ahead at certain games, prepping players. Kevin's just said in the chat, I think if Milner's back fit, it wouldn't surprise me then if Milner started in midfield with Fabinho and Keita. You know, don't forget, Keita started away to Everton, was very, very good. So I don't see that as a big change. As for Williams, he's been the one, hasn't he? The one that's come on consistently since the restart. Came on again last night. I don't know. It's a home game. I'm not, you know, I don't think he would be giving him a game just for the sake of giving him a game. But every time he's come on, he's done well.
True.
And if we haven't got the option of resting Trent and pushing Joe Gomez out there, then I don't think there's really anybody else, because we need Fabinho in midfield. But I do get what Gav's saying, that if you're going to dig a team out, you're not going to want to make too many changes for the next game.
But the games are coming thick and fast, aren't they? I mean, we've Brighton, I think, then during the week, don't we? So there's going to be a lot of games, and I know the home thing maybe isn't as big a deal now because there's no crowds, no fans there. But you know, maybe you're looking at Aston Villa at home. If you could pick a game that you think, right, this is going to be the one that you can put in Nico Williams, or you can put in Curtis Jones, this would be the one you'd pick. But maybe the last night has changed all that and has maybe altered his stance on it. And I know he came out saying that, you know, he won't be playing kids, he won't just be giving them games just for the sake of it. But I wouldn't be surprised if we saw one or two, maybe not from the start, but maybe at half time you might see Williams coming in, and if we're winning as we maybe expect to be, but it'll be interesting to see. You know, I think last night, as we said, it changes how he's going to look at the rest of this season, and it's going to be difficult maybe, where we all thought that the lads would have their feet up and we'd be playing the under-23s for the rest of the season. It's not looking like that'll be the case. But if we were to go with a team, and you've both sort of said maybe a Keita or a Chamberlain in midfield, this again, it would be the ideal opposition for them, wouldn't it? You know, get them in there. Villa, we don't think are going to put up too much of a fight. And look, without being too disrespectful to them, you know, that they're just terrible at the moment. So maybe it is a game for the Keita. Oxlade-Chamberlain, he seems to have a lot of trust in him, but Naby is the one that maybe needs the games, and this could be the ideal one for him. So I think it might be the same defence and the same team basically, but maybe Keita in for Wijnaldum. Just rather than have the functional midfield three, do you know what I mean, against the Villa, he might just throw in the change there. But I do like the idea of a Minamino maybe. You want to say something there, Gav?
I'm still trying to figure out where Minamino plays. To be honest with you, I'm still trying to work out where he plays in this side. You've seen him in a false 9. You've seen him off the right, I think, if I remember rightly. And people are still talking about him probably playing as an 8 in a midfield 3. But I want to see him play. I want to see them all play. You know, Naby Keita has all the tools to be a phenomenal footballer for Liverpool. He's been unlucky with injuries. But there's only so much time you can only hang on to that look for so long until you just become unreliable. And people have said in the chat there, you know, give Naby the last 4 to 6 games and see how he gets on. My worry is when you give Naby Keita 4 to 6 games, you know what way he's going to get on, and that's play really well and then get injured. You just hope it's not a recording team. It looks like a recording team at the moment, but hopefully that's something that's broken. I wanted to ask you two something, because it's being mentioned there by Chris Prosser, I think, and Owen Burke, just on the Gini Wijnaldum situation, and it might come back to the whole Thiago thing as well. I don't know if that's a bit linked, because have any of you heard anything on the Gini Wijnaldum situation? Because it seems to be dragging on a bit now.
Nothing. No, nothing at all. It's a strange one. I thought it would be one of the first things that got done, to be honest. But as this COVID pandemic caused, you know, an issue with that, because I was under the impression that the club had invested in upgrades for majority of the first team, you know, important players, new contracts, and the money was being spent on them and the training ground. So I would class Wijnaldum as one of those players. So why it hasn't been sorted, I don't know.
It's a strange one.
It's very mixed, isn't it? There's a lot of mixed talk around it. That's what I find. Like, it's like nothing's being said, and then all of a sudden it looks like he is signing something. There seems to be very varying reports on it. I just find it a bit strange, because he's in the last year of his contract, isn't he? He's gone past June the 30th. So he's
very poor planning from us to allow it to go this
far. That's the thing. That's the worry.
Yeah. Unless the thing is that we are pushing for something and we're waiting to see what happens, or we're willing to say, no, well, listen, we'll use him for another year and we're willing to lose him.
They came out and said that, didn't they? That they wouldn't force the issue, and if they'd happily let the contract run down and sell him. I heard that a while ago, but it doesn't make any sense, you know. And I think, you know, we had the second highest agent fees in the Premier League, and we signed no players. So what does that tell you? That tells you that it's all going on contract renewals, and it's all going on tying down our players. So we are big into, you know, say what you want. I think he's an unsung hero of the team. Gini Wijnaldum never gets the credit he deserves, but he's in the team all the time. And if Liverpool, you know, they be offering him a nice contract now, whether Gini wants something else, that's where I'm starting to go with this one, that he might think he wants to go and play somewhere else, or he wants to go to another country. I seen Bayern were actually linked with a move for him as well. So maybe a nice little swap for Thiago might be on the cards.
It could be something like that, but like, listen, I like Gini Wijnaldum. I think people can go to extremes on both sides on him. You know, they can say he's absolutely outrageous, and then other times he's absolutely appalling. You know, there was a thing going back probably not so much last season, but the season before, where he disappeared in away games and stuff like that, and then he kind of picked up, and that kind of went away. But I'd like to think that if Gini Wijnaldum wants to run out his contract, so be it. He's every right to. And he's been a good servant to the club. You've seen what he's won with the club. But I'd just like to think that Liverpool have a plan in place, and I'd be very surprised if Liverpool don't have a plan for this summer or next summer with regards to whatever happens to Gino Wijnaldum, whether that's he leaves or he stays and signs another contract. But we'll have to wait and see. But there seems to be just a lot of varying reports on it.
That's true. Liam Morrissey put in the chat there that you don't want another Emre Can saga sort of coming along. And I did read something about Michael Edwards is sort of, it gets on his, gets his back up the thought that they had Can and they let him go. They couldn't get it done. And then Juve got him on a free and then sold him a year later, and Liverpool essentially lost out on what, they could have got if they'd have signed him. So I think if he runs down the contract, it'll be because Liverpool are happy to sort of let him do that. If
I'd like an early announcement on it though.
Yeah,
I'd like
an early announcement. If there's any animosity, they'll sell him.
I'd like to hear in October that Gino Wijnaldum will leave Liverpool Football Club at the end of the season. It gives people so much clarity on the situation. Now, they mightn't want that to happen because then they get 7 months of, well, who are you signing? I seen people the night Liverpool were crowned champions on Twitter saying, it's great we're champions, then we go and spend some money. So you can only imagine the 7 months that would go on, with Gino Wijnaldum leaving the club and who's coming in instead, because that's what it's all about in some people's heads. I'd like to see some clarity on it sooner rather than later, regardless of what way it goes.
But one of the things as well that might be playing into this now is how much is he worth? On the market, what would they have thought they'd have sold him for before COVID compared to now? Because you look at Leroy Sané has gone to Bayern Munich for 50 million euros, and it's because he'd nothing left on the contract. And if they're linking Thiago for 35 million with us, that's scandalously low for a player of that ability. The prices, unless you're a Barcelona and Juve doing some sort of money laundering thing with the Laden Pjanic and Arthur deal, you're not going to get big money. So Liverpool might look at that and say, well, we value Gini at 30 million. Realistically, we'll only get 15 for him. So what's the point in, selling him? Just let the contract go down and we'll worry about replacing him. The only worry about it is there's a lot of replacing getting pushed down the line. We've a team that's a lot of key players are hitting 30 and going over 30, and they might need to start blooding in younger players sooner. You don't want to have them all going, have them all be replaced. Because if you keep Milner for the year, let's say, then it's him and Gini probably going next season. It's a few big holes to fill in. But look, we're not in charge, thankfully, because I'd be signing all sorts of weirdos if I was.
Listen, you wouldn't. I'd be drunk. I wouldn't. I wouldn't be able to sign anyone.
See, Messi isn't extending with Barca. I'd be on the phone to him.
Yeah,
Training one consists of 3 laps of the pub car park and then stop for some refreshments. How long has Messi got left on his deal?
Messi's 2021. It's
Next
just rumour stuff next season. Yeah, he only signs. He signs little extensions all the time. He doesn't.
He get another big bumper deal. He always does.
But do you reckon that he wants out now because there was a big fallout there with Eric Abidal. Eric Abidal is the sporting director, and he blamed the players when Valverde wasn't getting the results, and Messi lashed him out of it then in the press. And surely if it comes down to it, Eric Abidal's getting the P45 before Leo Messi. But you just don't know. But if he's available and he wants to play for Jurgen's Reds, he can come over and he can shake Andy Robertson's hand like a man and just get on. I'm all about that. That's fine.
Yeah, absolutely. Sorry, I took you off on a massive tangent there instead of doing predictions.
I love a tangent. But just as you say that, I want to move on to the prediction. So, Jim, I'll start with you. What score do you think there's going to be?
4-0.
4-0, good, solid 4-0. Anyone going to shine, do you think? Have you got a feeling that could be anyone's game?
Yeah, I think Keita scores 2. Glimpse into the future.
Yeah,
very good. 90 minutes and not getting injured, and that's it.
I like that, yeah. Why not? And Gav, what about you?
I've 5 or 6-0 in my head, I'm being honest with you. But again, I'm getting a bit thrown by the word that's coming out of Liverpool about how they're going to approach things, and then it's totally different. you know, Everton was meant to be all guns blazing, and it wasn't. Palace was, it'll be tricky, and we destroyed them. And then last night it was a team we wanted, and look what happened. But all teams being equal, I think if you look at Villa, I think they might approach it the same way Crystal Palace did, and I don't even think they have the attacking threat Crystal Palace have, and I don't think they have the defence Crystal Palace have. So I'm going to go with, do you know what? I'll go with Jim. I'll go 4-0. But I fancy all of the front three to score. And I don't know, throw in. I fancy Salah to get 2, and I fancy Mane and Firmino to both score as well.
Very good, very good. See, I was on the Chris Prosser sort of vibe of 7-0, but then Stevie's after jumping in there and blitzing that with something that's more up my street, and he's going for 12-0.
He must be watching the cricket. Someone must be 12 for no loss, is he?
I like the idea of giving someone a hiding, but Villa have been poor since they've come back, and you know everything is pointing to an arse whipping here for days on Sunday. You know. The fact it's going to be an Anfield, Liverpool were amazing against Palace, who are a better team than what Villa are better at the back than what Villa are, and it could get nasty. Now Avo's thrown in a 16, and I'm liking this. The cricket scores are right up my street, but I'll keep it sensible and I'll go with 6. I think it could be like a 6-0. I think we could really, really punish them, because I think Klopp will nearly be making them stand on their throat a bit. You know, he won't ease off. I think that's what it could be.
Yeah, I agree with you. It's for me. Could Villa look at this and say, "Listen, we want to rest players"? Yeah. It's one of those games that we can't win. You hear about it all the time. They write this game off and they target other games beyond that.
Good point. Who are they playing actually in the midweek?
Oh, God only knows. But
I'm going to tell you now.
So any game is difficult for them.
Oh well, they've got Manchester United.
Oh well, they could win that. They may as well rest.
Yeah, but they've only got 2 days. Apparently, so they're playing us on Sunday and they're playing United on Tuesday.
Yeah,
good bad times.
Yeah, so it's one of those, isn't it? But listen, I think they're going down. I'm being honest with you. I know we haven't discussed the bottom 3, but I think Villa are in serious trouble. I think Bournemouth are in serious trouble. And Norwich are gone.
It'll be the saving grace for the West Hams and the.
Well, you see West Ham. West Ham are terrible.
Yeah.
And everyone just kept losing around them, and they get a win, and it's like, happy days.
Brighton are the same. Brighton got 4 points in their first 2 games, and they played in the leapfrog out of the danger zone. Yeah. Because they're just so bad down there, you know. An interesting point there from Liam Morrissey. Did you hear that one? United have just lost Pogba and Bruno injured today in training. Apparently they injured each other.
Apparently injured in training.
Yeah.
Tackling each other.
Yeah.
Now, Stephen O'Connor also says Man City banned for 2 years. Breaking news.
Where's that breaking?
I don't know. If I don't know if Stephen O'Connor's acting the maggot.
He could be. But I'm fair play to him if he is. That's what we're all about. I like it, yeah.
I like it too. But we'll have to wait and see. But the bottom 3, I worry for Villa and I worry for Bournemouth.
Yeah, really you can't see where they're getting, where they're going to get their points from.
Any of the points at all. They just look a complete and a rabble.
Yeah.
They look. I mean, I watched a bit of them against Newcastle the other night.
Yeah.
They were as bad as I've ever seen for a Premier League team. And, you know, we're talking like the Sunderland teams that were bad, and the Mick McCarthy, and we're talking the Derby team. You know, they were some of the players they bought, mainly from us.
And they're releasing Oib. Oib is being released, hasn't he?
Yeah. 15 million they paid for him and 6 million for Brad Smith, and they've
released
$18 million for Solanke.
Yeah, they look to me like Bournemouth. To me, look like a side that are completely and utterly stale, and that's from the manager down. They look like, I don't know if they want to play for him anymore. I think it's hearing the same voice over and over again, especially when things aren't going well. I think I saw the writing's on the wall, isn't it?
Yeah. The 3rd and 4th goal went in against Newcastle, and the camera panned to Eddie Howe and his assistant on the touchline, and their faces they were literally, you could just see they were like, what can we do? There is literally nothing we can. And I've been in that position once, and it's horrendous because you know I said on Twitter, I wouldn't surprise me after that game if they both walked out of the changing rooms and that was it. Packed their bags and went home. But fair dues to them for not doing that. But I just don't see it.
Well, Eddie Howe gets homesick if he goes as far as Burnley, if you remember. So he probably just wants to stay around there.
But it's a good point you make there, Jim, because Newcastle, you know, I seen a bit myself, and they were saying about, you know, Newcastle had the lowest, usually the lowest average possession in games, and they were, you know, blitzing Bournemouth the other night. You know, they just couldn't touch the ball. It was crazy. So I think they're in trouble along with Villa. And Grizz might be happy, Gav. You might get Billing in the summer if they go down. He could He could be the one. So
we don't need that sort of show going on.
So listen, everyone in the chat for joining us, thanks very much. You've been lashing the comments in there tonight, so thanks for that. And Gav, are we back on Sunday night, is it, for a show?
Yeah, we're taking tomorrow night off. We're back on Sunday for a reaction show to Villa. It'll be 10 o'clock Sunday night, and we'll try and announce all our shows for next week when we're on Sunday as well.
Yeah,
let people know where we're at.
Good stuff. So, Jim, thanks very much for joining us tonight. Pleasure having you.
Pleasure, as always. Thanks, guys.
No worries. Gav, again, on the other side of the hosting duties tonight. Thanks very much.
Great stuff, Keith. Well played.
And I know Shawnee had a technical issue and had to drop out, but he's with us in spirit, and I'm sure he wishes us all the best.
R.I.P. Shawnee.
R.I.P. is right. So, listen, that's been our build-up show. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you again on Sunday. Take care.